You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series that syndicates for the A-List Online. My name is Andrew Mackay-Smith. I hope you're well. Just before we get to the interview proper, I want to ask mid and long-time listeners a question, and I'd appreciate it if you could hit me back up on Facebook or Instagram. If you want to hear more music on the show, I famously don't play any because my whole strategy behind the podcast was just to bring you the conversation. So many indie podcasts out there put bogus noises and songs that don't seem to fit, and I figure, well, you know the artist, you can go and find them on YouTube or Facebook or what have you. I mean, God, artists these days are the masters of their own destiny insofar as they post just about all of their content pretty much for nothing these days. Jesus. Such a weird time, especially growing up in the 90s when we had to pay almost $35 Australian for a CD. But these days, you don't have to pay anything. You get all of the greatest music of all time at your fingertips for nothing. But my point is that because of that environment, I don't play any music on the podcast, but I'm actually open to suggestions to play music. Even put music in the introduction, in the outro. Do you want me to do some random stuff like play some of the stuff that I get sent through each week? Because God knows I get sent enough of it, and some of it is very good, I must say, but mostly by underground bands that nobody will ever really get the opportunity to hear. But I guess my point is in the whole thing is I don't want to really detract from bringing you the conversations because there's a lot of noise out there in the world, and I want this to be just a little bit of an island, the podcast that is, a little bit of an island in a very busy day when you can tune in and you can hear from some of the greatest musicians to ever grace stages of the pubs and clubs worldwide. On that note, I am very open to suggestions. If you want me to play music in the intro, in the outro, share some new tunes, let me know on Facebook or on Instagram. On that note, who's the musician that I'm sharing with you right now? It is David White. He's the vocalist in Heathen. The reason for the chat, the catalyst for the conversation, is the brand new album from Heathen, released via Nuclear Blast on 18th of September it will be. It's called Empire of the Blind. So here he is, David White from Heathen.
Hello?
Hey David, how you going?
Yes, I'm doing okay.
Sounds like you got a dog there.
Oh, yeah.
I can hear
you
it.
that?
Oh, I heard him. We've had dogs all of our lives, and there's an unmistakable sound of a collar rattling around as they shake their head. So there you go.
Yeah, well, I went and grabbed something to eat, just to chomp on.
Sure.
And so he got up from laying down next to my wife, who's working, and he's like, "Oh, what do you got, Dad?"
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, we've had. What sort of dog have you got there?
He's a lab pointer mix. He's a
yeah.
black lab.
We've got a bull terrier. I don't know whether you're familiar with the breed, but
A bull terrier?
yeah, English bull terrier. Yeah, he's probably the only dog that were originally, like I'm talking 19th century here, so not recently, but bred for fighting. But that's been bred out of them now, and they've got a beautiful temperament. They just look like Satan's little helper, and people sort of cross the road to get away from you when you've got them. But he's a beautiful boy, actually, but he's getting a bit on, and he's very set in his ways. So he likes to bark at us and tell us exactly what's going on and when, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, how old is he?
About 10 now. So the breed only goes for about 12 or 13 years or so probably only got a year or two left in him before he starts getting serious health problems, I think, but that's life, God, I've got 2 kids, mate, 7 and 5, and we've got a bloody menagerie of animals at the moment, birds, fish, cats. It's I'm not really an animal person either, to be honest with you, in that way. But mate, when you got kids, you've got to do stuff for them, I suppose.
Oh yeah, well, we're totally animal people. We just have a dog, a cat, and then and then where we are in Florida, we just moved here a couple months ago, and in our backyard there's like a jungle in the back, and we get armadillos and turtles and whatever decides to come in our yard.
Yeah, I reckon Florida is the closest place in the United States to where I'm from, being Queensland in Australia. That's the only place that reminded me of Australia over there. San Diego reminds me of Sydney, and bits of New South Wales. Not even Los Angeles. I was a bit surprised. I thought Los Angeles would remind me a bit more of Australia, but San Diego does and Florida does.
Mm.
So there you
Well,
go.
Florida definitely has the heat and it has the humidity, you know.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely, mate. Yeah. So how the call's been going in the promotional trail for the album here?
Things are going good. We just dropped a second single, "The Empire of the Blind," today,
Yeah.
and it's all over, YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and all the different types of music services that are out there, and we're getting a lot of traffic. It's pretty awesome, actually.
Mm.
I was
Well, look.
super nervous last night, and then because it was starting to drop at midnight, and you know
Oh yeah, yeah, I get it.
I was
Yeah.
a lot of sort of obsessing and anxiety, I guess, all day today. I had a hard time focusing on anything else.
I don't blame you, but I can tell you this, mate. After hearing what you guys have done as a collective across the album, and I reckon the last two Satan albums as well. I don't know whether you're familiar with the new wave of British heavy metal band that's still going. But look, if Lars had any sense from Metallica, of course, he'd show James what was possible if musicians who are steeped in the traditions of that type of music and thrash metal put their mind to it, because I just can't stand Metallica these days. But you guys, and my point here is that I want to offer you guys and the rest of the band a sincere congratulations about what you've accomplished across it, because it's similar to what Kurt and the guys in Metal Church have done recently in their last two albums. You're just on point. It's uncompromisingly melodic, yet it's also heavy metal, if you know what I'm saying. And anybody with even a faint interest in the genre should find it enjoyable. So, mate, that being said, I get that it's nervous times because you want the album to do well, but you must be thrilled with how it turned out creatively.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and that's what makes it more frustrating not to be able to go out and perform and sort of spread the love and jam on that stuff. As a band, it's. I mean, I love the recording process. I love it. It's you get in there and you work on things and adding layers and all the different things that happen creatively in the studio. But there's nothing like playing live, and to get out there and actually play these songs live is going to be a lot of fun. And unfortunately, we have to take a pause because of a virus that's hit this world.
Yeah, I know it's bloody awful, mate. To be frank, but what else can we do? It's you no doubt wrote this album over the period of the last 18 months or so, and you had no idea, of course, that as you're recording it, you're on the precipice of never being able to, or certainly in the immediate future, being able to tour it and get on the road and come to countries like Australia and the UK, where it would be eagerly anticipated that you would be able to play shows. But I think you are doing as much as you can from a marketing and a PR perspective, and that you've got your YouTube videos up there. I've already
Sure,
made
and
you're right, you go.
well, I was going to say that, yeah. I mean, and that's the interesting thing, and kind of a cool thing is that this whole situation has caused people to listen more and seek out music more because they can't go anywhere. You know what I mean? They're not necessarily totally stuck at home, but they can't go to concerts, and so there's so much content out there now, and people are streaming and listening to music and buying records online, and so for that it's pretty cool. It's just unfortunate, like with a lot of the streaming services, it's good to get your music out there, but it doesn't pay very well.
No, I know.
You really have to sell. You got to sell a lot of records and CDs to and then for us we have to sell T-shirts and all that kind of stuff to actually make a dent.
Yeah, it was interesting to read some of the YouTube comments, the comments on the YouTube videos that you've put up there. There were people that were talking to each other about wanting patches and T-shirts and all of that sort of stuff. So you're doing good business in merch at the moment, are you?
Yeah, we are. After we had a steady flow, and then once the Blight came out a month ago, A lot of people were pre-ordering, and then they were asking for, like I said, patches. And
Yeah.
we had the idea to do a poster, and we had two different ideas. And I really wanted to do the album cover as a poster because I think it's such a cool piece of art. And then we had another, it's like a wanted poster kind of thing, which appears in the Empire of the Blind video. And that turned out really cool too. So we have the option of both posters, and anything we can do, we're trying to come up with different ideas of things that we think people might dig, as far as merch goes.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Hey, what about yourself and Lee? You've both been around the block many times. You've been doing this for almost 40 years, or over 40 years potentially at this point. You've been in other bands, and he's done some stuff with Die Krups in Germany and Exodus and the like. So you both have a fairly rich creative and performing vein in which to draw from. So I take it's the pair of you that write the album together. Is that right?
Well, I mean, the first record, Breaking the Silence, it was a group effort. Everybody contributed to that record, but most of the writing was the guitar players and I. I wrote the lyrics, and they wrote the music, and we put as a group we arranged the music. With Victims, it was predominantly Lee and I that wrote the record, and Doug had a few songs that he wrote, and I wrote lyrics for those songs. With Evolution of Chaos was more of a group effort, but this record, Cragen wrote the entire record. He wrote this record.
Oh, right. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, and it's just, and it was, I think it was out of just, he had a vision for the record, and also just, with Lee and Cragen out on the road with Exodus so much in the last 6 years or so, we weren't all together as a group to be, to work on stuff. So even though I have stuff still, in the can for the next record, we just weren't able to work together on this project until it was time to record it. So we had to give it, like, each one of us had to give it our own flavor in the studio. And that was our contribution, was, what we brought to the table at that point. But it's always different. I mean, you just kind of got to roll with how things go dynamically.
That you do, yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt. And look, I've listened to it a fair bit over the last 48 hours or so, really, since I've had it, just in preparation for our conversation here. And take this as a compliment again. I can't separate the tracks; they're all extremely strong. But do you have any faves on there?
Well, I think my favorite on the record is Shrine of Apathy.
Mm-hmm.
That one is, it's probably more of a ballady song for this record. Yeah. But it just has a lot of it has a vibe to it that is just unmistakable for me. And I guess selfishly, I like the different vocal areas that I sort of dwell in that song, and then lots of layering when it gets bigger, and as it builds and builds, and I like that type of a song because it really takes you on a journey, and that's what's cool about the whole record, is that it definitely takes you somewhere, and takes you on a journey and brings you right back. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Hey, you recently recruited Jason and Jim to the band. They've only been in the band for about a year or two. And look, got an almost 600 interviews. I've never asked this question, and I thought, why not ask you this one here? But, for an established band such as yourself, what do you look for when you're recruiting someone to join the band? Because you really do need performers and creative types that are performing at a high level.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, we're looking for people that understand what we do, and that have the ability to do it, but also people that we can get along with, because when you're touring, you're on the road, you have to live with those people, and basically being in a band is almost like a marriage, but you're you're however many people are in the band, that's the relationship. And so we've had different members in the band that we didn't have that cohesiveness, and it makes it's not fun, at times. Sometimes it's okay. It just for the long haul, you want to definitely find people that are you know quality human beings and people that you want to be around. And
Yeah.
with Jason, I've known Jason for a long time. I met him years and years ago. He lived in the Bay Area, and then he was living in LA, and he played in a couple groups with Craig, and they're really good friends. So it was kind of a no-brainer to bring him in. He's an awesome bass player, and
Yep.
he's super cool, And then Jim, he's worked with Exodus as a tech, and
Okay.
then we did a tour. We did a tour with Generation Kill, which was Rob Duke's band, and Jim was the drummer. And so, and we shared a bus, so we knew that we could get along with him easily. We all became good friends with him as well. So, when it came down to the drummer, that was the tough one, I think, because Darren Minter, those are some big shoes to fill. Darren was an amazing drummer.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a couple different, people that we were interested in. But at the end of the day, I think that Jim was the one that was the hungriest. And plus, he was somebody that we knew, and we knew that we'd be able to, get along with and have a lot of fun with at the same time.
Yep. Yeah. It's a heck of a thing, isn't it? As I said, I've had so many conversations with musicians at this point, and sometimes we go down to a bit of a rabbit hole depending on how much time I've got to chat. But sometimes they tell me stop the recording and I'll tell you actually what's going on here with this muso or what have you. It's just the amount of assholes that are out there that you try to bring into the band when you've got a vision and they just don't share that vision, and they do things like just the squabbling. I think is the thing that in bands. And look, I'm a musician myself, and
Yeah.
I've been in plenty of bands, I've got to say, but there's always one asshole in the band, isn't there, who just doesn't seem to want to help, set up the PA or pack down the PA, or just is rude to somebody else in the band, and you just think, this is meant to be fun, so can this please be fun?
Exactly. Well, I always made it. I mean, any other side projects that I've ever done, it's always with, friends, people that I want to, that if we're getting together, it's, we're getting together, we're having some beers,
Yeah,
and,
totally.
there's a lot of bullshit in between because, it's just good to get together and make music.
Mm.
We moved to Florida a few months ago, and of course, all my friends in the Bay Area are there, and it's been tough because even when we were there, with the shelter in place, you can't really get together, and that part really sucks because it's just
Yeah.
part of the fabric. It's part of the fabric that I live in, you know.
Mm.
So I'm trying to keep myself busy playing guitar and drums here, but it's a little lonely not to be able to jam with somebody else.
Absolutely, it is. Yeah, yeah. And talking about jamming with other people, look, you've played with some extraordinary musicians over the years. You've held your own in that court. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were in Blind Illusion for a period of time, weren't you?
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
a band that just coming out of high school. I did that for like 5 or 6 years. And once again, like Mark Biederman, I grew up with him, and he lived 2 doors down from me in my neighborhood. Went to my grammar school, and then when we first started the band, it wasn't Blind Illusion yet. We were like 12, 13 years old, and
Mm.
another friend of ours, Alvin Petty, had a guitar, and I was playing drums. And then Mark came over and was like, "Hey, man, I want to be in the band too." We're like, "You don't even play an instrument." And he's like, "Well, I'll get a bass. I'll do it." And he's a super bright guy, and he used to live next to a record shop. And the guys that ran the record shop, it was Lenny and Hugh. Those guys were musicians. One of them was a guitar player and one was a bass player,
Mm.
and they were both really, really good musicians. And they actually hooked him up. And they also would like throw records at him, go, "Oh, you need to check out this kid," And and basically influenced him and sort of steered him in the right direction musically, and actually took a guitar and fixed it up and put bass strings on it for him and gave him some lessons to get him started.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, I could talk
Yeah.
about that for a long time. So I have a lot of memories from those years. Yeah.
Well, I bet. I mean, look, the thing is, even here in Australia, as a kid in the 90s, we heard about this legendary band that had Les Claypool and Larry Lalonde and yourself, and there's so many other people that it's kind of like a band that people went into and they came out of and joined other really big bands, if you know what I'm saying. So were you in the band when Les Claypool was in it?
Well, I was, but when I first joined the group, or just before I joined the group, because when we first started the band, I played drums, and then we had a falling out as friends, and but that was we were young, just stupid stuff. And years later, I became the singer, and Les was in the band just prior, but then left the band, was not happy with his playing, and really wanted to just like go back and woodshed,
Yeah, sure.
and
Yeah.
and so he did. And Chris Olsen joined the band on bass, and I had met him from playing in another group, a local group, and he was a guitar player, but he picked up the bass, and we jammed with Chris for about a year, and then Les came back, and then we did a demo with I think it was On Deathbed and Kamikaze, and we got some airplay on the local college radio station, KUSF, and then we got a second guitar player because we wanted to be able to do the harmony guitars and all that kind of stuff, and we brought in a guitar player. His name is Brian Kehoe. Now, Brian Kehoe is still a mainstay in the Bay Area, and he's played on some records with Les now that Les has been, got pretty famous with the whole Primus thing.
Sure.
But he's on a lot of records, and he's toured with Les. And I've done a couple shows with him recently. He's done different projects, and the guy is phenomenal. If you ever look up Kehoe Nation, just incredible guitar player, great singer, crazy funny guy. But those years of Blind Delusion, that band was just unbelievable. But then there was a falling out and frustration because the club scene, there was no club scene for us. There was no, you know what I mean? And we were sort of bumping each other in the head at that point. And so the band kind of split up for a while, and then all of a sudden the club scene opened up for young bands. Bill Graham started Metal Mondays at the old Waldorf, and Exodus was still a band at the time. They were a band that came from the area that we came from too. We went to high school with those guys.
Sure.
And they jumped on that whole thing because they were ready to go. And I remember going to see them play at one of the first Metal Mondays, and Anvil Chorus was the headliner, and they were more progressive. And the next day I called Mark. I was like, dude, we got to put the band back together. so we did, but we got different musicians. We had Ben Haverow on keyboards and Evan McCaskey on guitar, and it just evolved into different things over the years. And we did pretty well in the club scene, but it just kind of got uncomfortable again for me, and so I left the group and then was looking for new horizons and found my way to the Heathen camp. And that's where that whole thing began.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, it's been a good partnership for you. You've done a lot, Dave, and you've done a lot with some bloody awesome bands. And you've played with some fantastic musicians, as I say. So, have you thought about writing a book or getting someone to ghostwrite your biography?
Absolutely.
Cool.
And I've had people ask me that, but and I'm sort of formulating it, in my mind. Because there's a lot of things, and maybe someday I'll do it. I'd like to get somebody to maybe help me out with that, and I have to find the right person. But just trying to hold on to the memories as much as I can. You know what I mean? Because sometimes there's certain things that somebody will tell me a story about something. I remember the time, blah 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 blah, and I'll be like, I don't remember that at all.
It's
So, you know,
Yeah, it's really interesting because I think see I'm a writer. You see, I'm a journalist as well, and I think I counted there's only 5 or 6 books from heavy metal and extreme metal luminaries out there, which is just incredible given the volume of bands. You know, I can think of Max Cavalera, Rex Brown, Dave Mustaine, David Vincent from Morbid Angel near you there, and he's in Texas these days, I suppose. But there are bugger all out there, and it is such fertile ground with so many great stories because you're road warriors. You typically, to a point earlier in the conversation, you have to get out there and perform for your fans. There's no doubt about it. So you come back with all of these wonderful stories, yet nobody's documenting them. Whether it's, I'll bring Kurt up again from Metal Church. I was talking to him about it, and yourself. You got all of these great stories, yet they aren't being documented. And don't get me wrong, but I'm in my 40s and none of us are getting younger. And some of these stories might go by the wayside, to your point again there. So I really hope you get that book out, mate, because I'd love to read it.
Yeah, well, I just got to get on it. And maybe now is the time to start, while we're still, in this shelter in place kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm writing a book myself right now. It's actually about this sort of stuff. I'm writing a book about the podcast because I think if I don't document, some of the precious moments that I've had, talking to almost 600 musicians, I'll probably go by the wayside. And, all of the people like yourself that have contributed so much and given, excuse me, so much to music fans over the years, and I'm just such a heavy metal appreciator and evangelist in that regard because it's so important that musicians like you keep on doing what you do, in my view.
Well, that's cool. I mean, Zetro from Exodus, he does a podcast. It's Tales from the Vault.
Yes, yeah.
And I did a talk with him, and he's basically, it's kind of what he's doing. He's sort of documenting by getting everybody to tell some stories, but you know what I mean. And he's getting quite a catalog. He's getting some stories, but I mean, from where I stand, I mean, I'm coming out of junior high school, and a lot of people that I just happened to go to school with, are like Kirk Hammett. I went to school with him, and we all know that Metallica's Metallica. But and he was a friend of mine. I watched the whole thing transpire, yes. And it's pretty crazy to have witnessed that. I totally appreciate that I had that opportunity, but it wasn't just Kirk. It's Les as well, and watching all the different guys that I played with, and where I've come, from there, and what I'm still, I still have the opportunity to do things, and who would have, thought that I'd do another record at this point, in 2000 or 2020.
Yeah,
so
exactly. Yeah.
There's definitely a lot to pull from. I just gotta, put into words and get busy.
Hey, back in those days, nobody could have dreamt, I suppose. You're all in the Bay Area there, going to school together and forming bands and the like. But was there ever even any drunken conversation? You have a joint, and you might have a few bevies, beers, or what have you, and you go, man, we're all going to take over the world, and then you all did. You know what I'm saying? Was there ever any that sort of vibe?
No, I don't know about that. I just think that I think we all were like just, trying to make the best music that we could, and there was definitely, the bands that when we were all coming out of high school, there was a few bands in our just sort of local area, and we were, supportive of each other, but we were also very competitive with each other. Yeah. And then once the club scene happened, and it opened up in the Bay Area, San Francisco and in the East Bay and even San Jose, bands were coming out of the woodwork. And it was weird, because sometimes you think, oh, we're the only ones on this island, but it's like, oh no, not. And then but it was amazing because then you're all of a sudden your friend list is expanding because you're meeting these musicians from all over the place, and not just the musicians, but the fans of the bands that come, and the people that work for the bands, and the girlfriends and the wives and whatever. It's been quite the adventure, and many of us are still close friends, and we tend to get together from time to time at shows, Unfortunately, sometimes it's at funerals.
Yeah, yeah,
um, but but still, there's just a common bond that we all have because you know we just were lucky enough to be a part of something that is history now.
yeah. Agree. Yeah, yeah. And look, I mean, I don't think I'm not built this way in terms of wanting to be in the spotlight, but there's no way I would have wanted to have been a Metallica myself back in those days, and just seeing the issues that have come up in and around the band, I think Kirk just seems to have the right personality to mesh in between Lars and James, doesn't he? Because I imagine, like poor old Jason experienced, it'd be bloody very, very difficult to say the least to find a place between those two fellows.
Yeah, I mean it's funny because I knew Jason and um, didn't see that kind of stuff. But of course you're not on the road with them.
Hmm.
Um, I later heard the stories, and it's like, wow, it's unbelievable. But you know, losing Cliff was a big deal, and they didn't deal with it very well. At least I know James didn't deal with it very well. Um, but and like you said with Kirk and his temperament,
Yeah.
I think that's why it just inevitably happened for Kirk to be in that group because if you had if you had Dave Mustaine, you would have had two
Yes.
two you know what I mean, the two egos three egos really, because
Three.
with
Yeah.
Lars, James, and Dave, it was volatile and it was amazing. It was amazing on stage, but I remember the first time I saw them when they first came up, and
Wow. Yeah.
it was like they had two frontmen, with Dave and with James, and that was the only thing I thought, wow, these guys are really good, but they got to figure that out, because that dynamic's kind of strange, and it was a little awkward,
Mm.
and eventually they did work it out.
They figured it out.
you
They
know
did. Yeah. Yeah. It's funny
they
how
did, and
fans. Yeah, sorry, you go, mate. You're right.
oh, I was just going to say that, and I know it was probably rough for Dave to watch them, take off like that, but Dave did all right, and he wrote some great stuff and had some great records. So, and I don't, it would have been probably wouldn't have gotten all that music out of the two bands had that not split up.
Agreed. Yeah, I can never understand why the fans argue over the point on stupid Facebook posts and Twitter and Instagram and all the rest of it. I mean, I'm thank God he did leave Metallica because I love Megadeth, and they were probably one of the first bands I ever got into in the late '80s as a kid, and Dave just seemed so dangerous back then. He just seemed like as though he was unhinged and stuff. But that was really the allure. And of course, then he had these great tracks off the first. Or actually, a lot of their stuff is actually quality, except for some of the radio stuff he's tried to do, like Risk. But I think what I notice especially is a lot of musicians are drawn to Megadeth over Metallica, and I guess I count myself in that camp, just because of the technicality of the music. But mate, can't argue with Metallica's first 3 and 4 albums. I don't think. I mean, they really are the blueprint, and I've written this many times. They are the most continuously influential heavy metal albums of all time, between Kill 'Em All and up to Master of Puppets, I think.
Yeah, well, for me, I'm good all the way up to the Black Album. You know,
Mm.
I think that album is sensational, and they really, were able to really capture the sound that was the partly that was missing in the prior records. I felt like they did Cliff a real, injustice, and Jason as well on Injustice for All, but by turning the bass down to get that crunch, and you
Mm.
know, Cliff is gone now, and those you can barely hear the bass on those records, and the guy was amazing.
Yeah, it's very
Like,
strange. Yeah, I don't know what happened. I mean, there's a famous story that's out there now with the engineer whose name I can't remember has recounted. And there's no reason to doubt his story that Lars came in and turned the bass basically till it was audibly. I mean, it's audibly not there. I mean, it's somewhere in the mix, I know, but it just bleeds into the low end of the E string of the. I think they played an E flat on that album, didn't they? It just blends in with that, and I can't understand why frankly they'd ruin an album, because I thought it was great as a kid, but I haven't been able to listen to it in 25 years.
well, it was the crunch of the guitars, and I'm in a band with a guitar player that thinks that "And Justice for All" is the greatest produced record, because he loves the crunch of the guitar and he could care less about the bass. And
Jeez,
I'm
yeah.
always the one pushing for more bass because I feel like you got to have that bottom. And I
I
think
can
that
hear that. Yeah.
yeah, and the kids, I think, the fans, when you have there's a lot of bands out there that the heavy bass and their metal, not really the thrash bands, but like bands like what's that? What's the band? Oh my God, it's so terrible. I can't remember the name of the band at the moment.
It
But
happens
it
to me
was
all the
more
time.
like, in more in the like the new metal vein.
Oh yeah,
Um,
corn or something like
oh, the,
that. Or
Corn,
Limp Bizkit.
exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yep.
Corn, still had heavy guitars. Of course, they were tuned down, but that bass is rocking. And when they play, man, people are dancing to that music and just getting into that groove of it. And I particularly like that kind of thing because I feel like that when the bass is loud like that, you feel it like through your whole body, you know. And
I
then
agree.
and
Yeah.
that's where with Metallica on the Black Album, they were able to make the bass nice and fat by separating the frequencies and still had an amazing crunchy album and great songs off the record as well.
Yeah, I've written articles in the past for publications, and one of the points that I've made is that at some point in time, if James had switched allegiances away from Lars and focused on Jason, I think we would have had from a musical perspective, no idea what happens in the behind the scenes between families and the business side of things. But I think from a musical perspective, I think we would have had a tremendous band, better than what we've had actually. To be honest with you, with the stuff that they've released through Load and Sandanga and pretty much everything post Black Album. I hate to say it, but Jason's just so creative, and he's a great bass guitarist, and he can definitely sing as well. He's been out here with his own band Newstead on the Soundwave Festival. He can definitely sing as well, but yeah, it would be interesting if there was a parallel dimension somewhere, and we could sort of step into that for a moment or two and just sort of investigate what that'd sound like. Because I think he certainly gets the checks from the royalty checks from playing on the Black Album, but I reckon he'd swap it all if he could play with James and play the music that was in him. Collaborate with James in that way.
Yeah. Well, what are you going to do? you know,
Absolutely
I
nothing.
think that he's with the pressure. I think he's probably quite happy. He's okay because of the records that he did do, and he can still go out and play. And I thought it was cool when he got together with the guys from Voivod, to help them and get them a boost for a little while there. Being a fan of Voivod, it was kind of like, whoa, that's cool.
That was interesting,
You
wasn't
know,
it? That collaboration. Yeah, it was very left
yeah.
field, but yeah, he did the Aussie thing as well. But mate, look, I'll bring this around again, and I'll make this my last question for you. But you've probably been to Australia before, but are we a good territory for you musically?
Well, first of all, I've never been to Australia,
Wow. Okay.
um,
There
and
you go.
so I know that Cragen and Lee have both been there with Exodus, but I've yet to step foot on that territory, and I can't wait. I think it'd just be great, and I know there's a lot of metal fans there. Can't wait to go and see how it is there.
Oh, it'd be killer to see you guys out here once everything bloody settles down a little bit and we can go back to something resembling normality, mate. I can't wait to see you guys.
Yeah,
Excuse
well,
me. Yeah.
you know, oh, that's okay. Bless you.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah, no, I hope that like I was talking to somebody, another magazine or whatever, doing an interview last week, uh, and he was from Australia and asked me a similar question, and it's if we ever going to get there, and I was like, well, it just matters of like if we get the support of the fans over there, it's really important that we sell records, because that's what's going to make it count. And you got to have that demand because definitely the festivals like Summer Breeze will want us to come out.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's a long way to travel over here, isn't it? Too. You definitely got to have, a bit of a guarantee from a promoter. I think a lot of them are suffering at the moment too, as you can probably appreciate.
Oh yeah.
It's all of the advances that they gave to bands prior to this bloody thing taking hold, COVID-19 taking hold. I think I mean, what do? You got to spend money on promoting things and putting it in social media, and then boosting posts that way, and then putting up little bill posters around the entertainment districts of town here in the Valley in Brisbane. And I know a lot of them have lost quite a bit of money doing that. I just hope that they can get back up and running again and make you guys a substantial offer so that you guys can come down in the future.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, we actually dodged a bullet with our European tour for this record. We were just about to pay like all the deposits for the bus and all the different things that we had to do to prepare to to go to lock things in. And it was happening, and we were kind of holding off, and then we had to, of course, we had to pull the plug, and then everything went to hell. So.
Yeah. Well, mate, good luck with everything. Congratulations on just having a career playing music. I mean, I don't think people appreciate how difficult it is to stick it out and actually do it. And you've got 4 killer albums here with Heathen, starting way back in 1987. But to your point there earlier, also too, you did some tremendous work there with Blind Illusion. So you've really contributed to heavy metal over the years, mate. And so thank you for doing that.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having me, and we appreciate it.
No worries, mate. All right. Well, thanks very much, and hopefully see you down here soon.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
Pleasure, mate.
All right. Take care of yourself.
You too.
Right.
Cheers. Bye.
Cheers.
That's it, folks. You've been listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series that syndicates for the A-List Online. My name is Andrew Mackay-Smith, and that was David White from the US outfit Heathen. Thanks so much for listening.